Hey everybody, this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And today I was made to watch Buckaroo, Banzai, something. A long title that I can't remember, but Buckaroo Banzai is what you need to know.
We're not starting this till you get the whole title up. I'm going to wait right here for you.
How about you say the whole title? Because I just can't. Something, dimension, something.
The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension.
Okay. There you go.
Yes, which is, of course, the 1984 classic, cult classic, at least. Another one of these movies. This is another crawl, basically. Same time period. It's one of those movies it's weird and it's wacky and it's got a lot going on.
It's bonkers.
Yeah.
I was thoroughly confused the whole time.
Yes, I think that is the desired first watching experience of Buckaroo Banzai.
Okay.
It almost wants to confuse you.
Well, good job.
It did it. It won. So if you've never seen this movie, if you've never watched this movie, as many have not, unfortunately, it's a movie about a character named Buckaroo Banzai who is half American, half Caucasian, half Japanese. And he is a neurosurgeon, a world famous top tier neurosurgeon. He's also a physicist, a scientist. He's got comic books, video games,
and he's a rock star.
And he's a rock star.
I was at the beginning. I was like, "Oh, I see all this. See why this appeals to you because it's not just 2 careers, but 3, 4. Hard to tell, which is what you wanted to do.
Right?
You were saying a while back.
It's an episode or 2 ago. If you're not following the mythos of this podcast, right. When I was about 11 or 12 years old, I was convinced that I was going to change my name to Rick, my first name. And I was going to be a scientist, and a
stand-up comic,
and
a rock star. Yeah, the stand-up was during the day.
Yeah,
and the rock star was at night.
It kind of went in an order, right? At first, it was scientist rock star.
Okay,
and then it was stand-up comedian rock star. About 12 or 13, I started coming out of my shell. My personality started emerging, and people started saying, "Oh, you're funny. You should be a comedian." So that's when scientists went to the way, and the grades started to decline. So scientists went by the wayside, and it became stand-up comedian and rock star.
So Buckaroo Banzai is you if your grades had continued, and people had encouraged you in STEM.
Effectively, that didn't exist at that point, but
right.
The plot of this movie isn't all that complex, though the delivery of all of the plot points of the movie is pretty complex.
Well, there's a lot of names and faces.
There's just a lot of people named John.
Well, and then some of the people have 2 faces.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of location jumping.
Yeah.
And
people split up a lot.
And there's big gangs of people that are like 5 and 6,
and huge cast.
None of them really developed, and so you never know who's who. Yeah, it's a huge
cast. Buckaroo Banzai has a ragtag group of scientists / mercenaries / also who are all in his rock band called the Hong Kong Cavaliers, and they ride around in a double-decker tour bus that is also their operations center for all of their operations. They have this network. I think it's the Blue Blazers.
I think
this network of like Minutemen who they can call into action in any area. There's the rug pullers and the rug somethings, and there's a whole facet of this.
Well, yeah. At one point, some guy referred to himself as an irregular, which I think means like it's a militia thing, and I was like, "Whoa, this is getting way, way beyond."
So that feeds into one of my talking points, but let me give you a brief rundown of what this movie's all about if you haven't seen it. Again, Buckaroo Banzai, neurosurgeon, scientist, rock star. he is working with the government on a project to, I guess, break the land speed record with a rocket truck, a Ford truck, not an F-150, like their smaller truck that they used to make in the 80s. I don't know what it was called. My dad actually had one. And they are doing, you start off right into the test. He's late because he's in surgery, operating on someone's brain with a guy who comes to be known as New Jersey. His name's Sidney something, played by Jeff Goldblum. Buckaroo Banzai is played by Peter Weller, a.k.a. RoboCop. And he finishes the brain surgery and flies in and jumps in the rocket car. And then, unbeknownst to the government, the true point of this test of this rocket car isn't to break the speed record, because that's easily done. It is, in fact, to test a beam thing that Buckaroo and a Japanese scientist named Hikita have been working on for Hikita's been working on it since the 30s. And it allows you to go inside of the empty space in matter. At one point, he's giving a presentation on it, and he's like, this rock is neutrons and protons and whatevers, but the rest of it, like 80% of it, is just empty space in there. And he believes there's something in there. That
is one of those scientific facts that just kind of rocks your world when you hear it. It's like when you learn that color isn't a thing. Yeah. Like the way that I see red is totally different than you see red, and it's just like you just kind of sit and stare off into space for a while. Like, I don't know how to live in a world where I know that fact. Well, like, same thing. Like this thing that seems really solid, this table, whole lot of just dead space
just nothing
in there.
Inside there.
That's kind of a mind fuck.
Yeah. And so during this test, he succeeds in breaking through to the 8th dimension and goes inside of what's like a lot of pictures of what electron microscopes see and stuff.
Yeah.
And he happens to bring back something with him, but in the mean, which doesn't actually become plot significant, which is kind of weird. No. It's just there for him, I guess, to prove that he did it.
Why is it the 8th dimension, by the way?
That's just let's count off the dimensions. Earth, fire, wind, air, heart, water.
Gemini. Enneagram type 2. I don't know.
I don't know why it's the 8th dimension, because it sounds cool. And anyway, this triggers who is now known as John Worfen. His name was Emilio something. This character is played by an amazing John Lithgow, doing the most over the top, stereotypical Mamma Mia Italian accent.
Did you see in the credits he had a dialect coach?
Oh yeah.
So this is like on purpose.
Oh yeah, no. He said he based it on someone. I've seen in interviews where he said he based it on someone.
I'm not even Italian, and I'm a little offended.
Right. So anyway, we're clued into the fact that John Worfen worked with Hikita in the 30s, 38, something like that, on this device. They partially succeeded, in which John Worfen flew into a wall and was stuck there half in our dimension, half in the 8th dimension. And he was accosted by these lectroids, red lectroids, which is this race of people that look like kind of like dinosaur men. Like I'm pretty sure I heard that the basis for these characters was like a thought experiment, or like not a thought experiment, but like a project, or just like a theorization that someone had done of like, what if dinosaurs evolved into humans? Like what if that was the path that it went on? So they look kind of reptilian.
They reminded me of the show Alien Nation, which I think was like 5 or 6 years after this, but just sort of around.
Yeah. And very much there's a movie named called Enemy Mine. Louis Gossett Jr. plays an alien that looks very much like this.
That's I'm having a hard time seeing Louis Gossett Jr. as an alien.
It's what's the good Quaid?
Neither of them, but
what's the better Quaid? Dennis. I'm pretty sure it's Dennis Quaid and Louis Gossett Jr. And yeah, that's a movie you'll watch, so don't worry, you'll see it sooner.
Okay.
Anyway, at that point, some of these lectroids escaped somehow, and took over the bodies of a bunch of people, and they're all named John something. They were trying to assimilate, so they just named themselves John something, John Worfen, John O'Connor, John Gomez, John Yaya, John Smallberries.
Because at a certain point, they just were choosing random English words, or not even English words.
And of course,
as last names.
Everyone's favorite, John Big Booty, who is constantly called by John Worfen, Big Booty. Yeah. Big Booty. So that triggers them because now they've broken through the eighth dimension, and that sets the plot in motion. But because of that, the black Lectroids come from the planet 10. Come from planet 10? It's planet 10? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think.
Come from planet 10 to stop the red Lectroids from getting back, because basically John Worfen is like Lectroid Hitler.
Yeah.
And they stopped him and they imprisoned him in the eighth dimension. And he's basically been stuck on Earth, stuck in the eighth dimension until he escaped in the 30s. And he has been plotting the whole time. And of course, people think he's crazy. But he's been plotting the whole time how to get back to Planet 10 so that he can enact the Fourth Reich or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then now there's this. There are the black Lectroids who want to stop the red Lectroids. There's Buckaroo Banzai and his crew who want to stop the red Lectroids. And the black Lectroids take it a step further by basically threatening to nuke Moscow, which will make the Russians nuke America if Buckaroo Banzai can't kill or contain John Worfen, aka Lord Worfen, in time. And then adventure ensues from there.
Yeah. It's movies like this, by the way, that make me think that when the Soviet Union broke up, every screenwriter in America went, oh shit, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Because it's just such an easy villain, or just an aside of a plot, like, oh, it's the Russians. Oh.
Yeah. And for a while they were like, cool, the Chinese.
Yeah.
And then the Chinese became so wealthy and like bankroll 50 to 90% of most Hollywood movies now. They had to pivot that real quick to the North Koreans.
Yeah.
You know, like, yeah. So,
and I guess, there's unlikely to be a North Korean, pack or something that rises up and says, you can't make fun of us anymore because they don't see our movies.
Right.
So,
presumably. So that's the plot. Easy to follow, frankly. Red Lectroids, black Lectroids, the eighth dimension, rocket cars that are also going through matter. Like it's, the president is there. Dan Hedaya does not play the president.
He wasn't in this very much.
He wasn't. He
just sort of
plays John
disappeared.
Gomez.
Did he get killed and I missed it? I don't.
Maybe he got killed.
Okay.
Off screen, sort of, or like killed in Lectroid form, so you didn't really notice.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the. Man, yeah, that's it.
Well, Dan Hedaya is one of the actors in this that we have really enjoyed in previous movies that we've talked about on the podcast, and also our other favorite, Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown, yes, he is in this. He plays Rawhide.
Yeah, he also dies.
He dies,
not very theatrically, not nearly as theatrically as in Highlander.
No. But it's funny because he's named Rawhide and has kind of a Southern accent. He's got kind of a cowboy thing going on. But after the successful surgery in the beginning, Buckaroo Banzai invites New Jersey to join the crew, the Hong Kong Cavaliers. And when they show up to pick him up, he is in a full-on Marty McFly 1950s fringy cowboy outfit.
And why?
Because he likes country music. I don't know.
Okay.
It's never explained.
Okay.
He's from New Jersey, born and raised apparently, and has cow print luggage and fur chaps and the whole deal, hat and scarf and the whole thing.
Well, and when he was invited to join, quote, the group, that was like the musical part.
I think
right.
I think it's the whole thing.
Is it known that like it's a
Oh, I think it is, because there's a whole Buckaroo Banzai empire. There's comics. Okay. There's, of course, all the Blue Blazers, all the Irregulars, and all that. So, yeah, I mean, I think people know what Buckaroo Banzai is all about. And if he asks you to join, I think you get like he does ask. He asks him if he can sing. Yeah, which might be what gives him the impression. But yeah, so there's that. This movie is crazy.
Yes,
it's absolutely crazy. It's it's a hugely influential movie in Hollywood, apparently. So some things that you may or may not have noticed. First of all, there's the rocket car looking suspiciously like a certain time machine.
I did notice there was a thing that looked like the flux capacitor.
The flux capacitor is 100% based on the, what is it called? The overthruster? Overthruster. Yes. So it's actually been said in multiple interviews that when the overthruster is just like a little hunk of metal with some switches on it. But when it's in place in the car, there is a Y-shaped light that I have heard the production design of Back to the Future 100% based the flux capacitor on.
I think if you compared screenshots of them, they would be, 90% the same.
I mean, it's made of it's made of like tube, but this is LEDs, but yeah.
Well, and the whole thing of, driving straight and picking up
fast.
speed, I kept thinking 1.21 gigawatts.
Right. It takes a lot of power. Got to get up speed.
If it gets to 88 miles an hour, you're going to see some serious shit.
Exactly.
Which makes the other connection that we noticed even nicer.
The other connection that we noticed.
There's this character actor in this. He plays the Secretary of State or something. And he's got some weird backstory that I didn't understand. His
Secretary
name is
of Defense or something.
Okay, his name is Matt Clark, and I had to look a little bit to find his bio, but he's been in tons and tons and tons of things, including a lot of Westerns. And I was like, where have I seen him before? Where have I seen him before? He was in Back to the Future 3 as the bartender in the big old saloon. And you think, okay, why would you remember that face? Well, there's several scenes in there where Doc Brown has no tolerance, and there's this whole thing where he drinks a shot of whiskey and immediately passes out, and the guy's like, make some wake up juice. And they got to pour it down his, anyway, that guy.
Yes.
So
yes. And also I've heard unsubstantiated some of the designs for something like the Ecto-1 and Ghostbusters, just with all the stuff on it and the radiation warning signs and all the stuff. This is one of Kevin Smith's favorite movies. He hosted a big panel at a comic convention at one point with Lithgow and Peter Weller and some others.
Okay.
He cites it as a big influence on a lot of his stuff. It's just, and it's one of those things. It's something like that comes along every now and then. For Nirvana, were hugely inspired by the band the Meat Puppets. At the point at which Nirvana was inspired by the Meat Puppets, they hadn't really had a major hit. And then the Nirvana does 3 Meat Puppet songs on their Unplugged, and the Meat Puppets are back from the dead, and they're making music to this day, I think. So there's that kind of thing. There's always someone out there who's making things that you love, and then they say oh, actually I was influenced by this. And it's something that nobody cares about or has ever heard of, or, a handful of people even like. And this movie is kind of like that for some filmmakers. There's other parallels you can draw. There's a scene, and I meant to look it up and see if the actor that plays Hikita was the same actor that plays the Keymaker in The Matrix Reloaded, because there is a scene where he's running through corridors, running away from somebody, locking doors behind him.
Oh.
And it's shot almost exactly like the Wachowskis shot the Keymaker running through doors, locking doors behind him.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was just like, oh, if this is the same actor, that will be gold. but yeah, there's you can find a lot of stuff of people just saying the style, the music, just any of it, all of it was a huge influence.
Yeah. So you were talking about the in the 30s, the electroids come and live among us, blah, blah. There's a point at which Jeff Goldblum is because they're all quote in the system, and they all are born in
they're looking them up. Once they start to unravel it, they're looking. And
they realize they all have the first name John, and this is suspicious. And they're all employees of the same company,
and they all got their social security cards on the same date.
Yeah. So, and then he does the math, and he's like, "Oh, they were born. They all were born right after the War of the Worlds broadcast." And I just looked it up. That was October 30th, 1938.
Yeah.
I thought it was earlier for some reason, but I think that's a really interesting idea. And they say Orson Welles was bribed into saying that it was all just. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hypnotized, yeah.
Yeah.
The
it
first
actually,
part of it is real.
It actually did happen.
Yeah,
and
it's actually happening.
Yeah. I thought that was a fascinating concept.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of dropped, and it's just like this, hand wave explanation for that's how it happened. But I was like, no, can we focus on that? Because that's actually kind of neat.
I want that movie. Yeah. No, but like it could be developed more, but also it serves its purpose. Like it's just like, hey, here's this fun, because this is pre-X-Files, pre-conspiracy theories. Not that conspiracy theories didn't exist, but it's pre-mainstream conspiracy theories. So this is literally like them doing a little bit of like the wink and the nod stuff that X-Files would do in a huge way later of like, oh, anytime that someone thinks they see this, actually they're seeing Bigfoot or whatever.
Well, maybe, but I don't know. I kind of feel like predating X-Files means I want to hear more about it, because it wasn't like they could just drop a little bit and people would be like, oh, X-Files, I get it. Okay. People weren't primed for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I want a whole movie about that.
Yeah.
Please. But this movie is, when it's remembered for a few things. But the thing that I remember this movie for personally is, it's the end credit scene, but we'll get to that in a minute, is just like the way that this movie looks so authentically 1980s.
It really does.
I mentioned this to you before, but like nowadays when people have nostalgia for the 80s, Stranger Things, synthwave music, all these different aesthetics that pop up, the VHS type stuff, they're romanticizing something that barely existed.
Is it like the Happy Days version?
Right. Just, I think the comment I made was there was other music besides disco in the 70s. Like,
yeah.
This movie though is contemporary, and it's doing so many of those things. It's got the synth music. It's got the fashion. At one point he wears a suit jacket with a popped collar, skinny ties. Reno at one point in the end credits, he's got two belts on.
Yes.
And Perfect Tommy is wearing.
He has a lot of.
Perfect Tommy's just like a walking 80s, pushed up sleeves on a sports jacket.
Yeah.
He's wearing a sports coat, pushed up sleeves and no shirt
bleached
underneath.
Blonde hair. He's got a lot going on with some like power sleeves.
He's perfect. He's perfect Tommy. So that's like, if someone wanted to know what the 80s was actually like in the 80s, not the way that people remember it, you show them this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's got everything that was in it was authentic to the time. Like everything, like down to like Penny Pretty, who is the sort of love interest in this movie. Her fashion is a throwback to the 50s. Like her pink dress is like a throwback dress to like a prom dress type thing, which was like, you think of Madonna, like all the stuff that she did, which were like kind of like frilly prom dresses, but like cut off into a mini skirt and, with like little lace gloves on.
Well, maybe. I don't know. It looked more 20s to me, but I think the 50s borrowed some from the 20s. So
yeah, I just mean like even the retro aesthetic is on point in, you're because in the just like every time frame, you are hearkening back to something from before.
Yeah.
The whether it's going back to disco or back to this or whatever it is.
Nothing is original. Everything's based on something else.
There were greasers in the 80s, 70s and 80s. Like, always. There's always something. Yeah, this is the movie you show them. If they actually want to know what the 80s was like, show them this movie. There were actual people, like especially the club scene, the way all the different people are dressing. There's one point where there's a woman in the audience who's dressed fairly masculinely with like a newsboy hat on.
I saw that.
That's so... Yeah. I knew people who dressed just like that in like 86, 87.
Speaking of, okay, can we go back to Penny for a second?
Sure.
As I mentioned to you before we sat down, you know how I love a movie when a woman has no purpose except to be sexy and be a damsel in distress.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this.
What is the point?
I don't know if you know this, but in the 80s, only men were allowed to accomplish things.
Yeah, I've heard.
Have you heard that?
I've heard that.
Yeah, no, there's the representation, and I actually did I did one bullet point, which is just women / minorities. So again, Hikita is playing Japanese. The actor is really playing Japanese, like the most stereotypical accent that you can
It's
possibly
not
get.
quite Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but it's close.
Yeah, it's close. I mean, you know, he knew what he was going for, and he was hitting it like it was, you know.
This is not going to win any sensitivity.
Yeah,
awards.
I can't, like, I don't know if I'm even allowed to be offended because it was an actual Asian person doing it, you know. So I don't know. I'm gonna be offended. I'm gonna have white guilt just in case. But yeah, the women, the minorities. I mean, although Hikeda he's the guy who basically invented this technology, so like he's not given the short shrift. He's just portrayed in a less than favorable light.
You know, an Asian scientist is a stereotype in itself. So
but yeah, Penny, like, yeah, Penny's introduction is amazing. The Buckaroo Banzai and the Hong Kong Cavaliers are playing a show at a club
in New Jersey, as it's pointed out. Is this all in New Jersey?
I think a lot of it takes place in New Jersey, yeah, because that's where the Yo-Yo Dine is and all this stuff. Yeah, like, that's another thing. Yo-Yo Dine in Terminator, it's called Cyberdyne. I don't know if that's an influence or not, but I feel like it must be. Yeah, and they're just rocking the place, and then Buckaroo Banzai stops everything and says, "Is there somebody out there who isn't having a good time? Is there somebody out there crying?" And
it sounded just like patter at first, and then he's like, "No, really."
He cut through, like somehow he heard it through the, and they stop, and Penny is crying, and she has a sob story. She came from Wyoming, and she got kicked out of the Y, and they won't even let her pawn her luggage so she can get some money. And she's at the end of her rope, and he starts singing. What's the song he sings?
Is it "Dream a Little Dream"? Of Me?
I can't remember. It's a song, and he's singing it on the piano. Very sad. She pulls out a pistol and tries to shoot herself.
That I think still had the pawn shop tag hanging from it.
That she probably got from
yeah.
And a waitress happens to pop her arm as she's walking by, and she misses shooting herself. But it turns out that Buckaroo is obsessed with her because she looks exactly like his wife, Peggy. I think it's Peggy.
I think so too.
Who died. And maybe that's why he could hear her crying somehow. You know, there's some psychic connection. I don't know. Because there's nothing more than that a woman with a twin sister wants, other than more than for her husband to marry her sister after she dies and effectively replace her. Yeah, as if she basically.
I would say neither the wife nor the sister want that.
Yeah,
like that's just creepy and weird.
It very, very. So Penny is then she goes to jail, but Buckaroo gets her out, and then she's just tag along. She's just there for like plot convenience a few times.
Doesn't really serve any role.
And then she gets kidnapped, and it's a stereotypical damsel scenario.
It's all pretty gross.
Yeah, I mean, she's like a little bit capable every now and then. Like there's a point at the press conference where she understands some very like esoteric scientific point or whatever, and then she's like, or maybe that's just too obvious. And Buckaroo's like, no, that's not obvious at all. Like, so like she's shown to be smart and, but yes, 100%. Like it was not what little crumbs she was given they're not going to overtake.
Well, and you talk about the fashion for, I would say, the last half of the movie. She's wearing a white dress shirt and then a black garbage bag for a skirt.
I don't know if it is or not. Maybe it's improvised.
I don't even, what? And then it's, of course, slit up the thigh.
Oh, yeah.
So it's... And
the dress shirt is like tied off the way that girls used to tie off their shirts.
Yeah, I don't understand.
No, it's not. But
not a high point for strong female roles.
Yeah, this movie would have been less offensive if it had 0 women in it.
Yes,
like at a certain point.
Yes.
Yeah. So the thing about this movie and this whole thing is that it feels like it's based on something. It's based on source material.
It really does.
Apparently, there's some serial from the 40s or 50s. That it borrows heavily from. The guy was a scientist and a war hero and something else, and I can't remember what it was, but apparently it borrows heavy. It was a radio thing, I think, or a comic book or something. But it feels like it's based on something, and and I didn't write down the writer's name, damn it. But I think that's because he had a lot of time to shop it around, and he had a lot of time to write a lot of backstory, and he had a lot more he wanted to do. There's a teaser at the end of the movie to stick around for Buckaroo Banzai versus the World Crime Syndicate, which I think there's some mention of it in the movie. If you catch it, I was looking for it, but I didn't catch it this time. But apparently they mentioned something to do with the world crime, like they're trying to do world building beyond this movie to build for the next one. And had this movie been a hit, I'm sure they would have jumped right into the next one, because at that point, coming off of Star Wars, everybody was looking for a sci-fi franchise that they could churn out sequels for. So if this movie had hit, it would have been off to the races for Buckaroo Banzai movies. As it is, I'm pretty sure that either a book or a comic book was made of the World Crime Syndicate, and there are rumors, constant rumors. Kevin Smith was trying to bring back Buckaroo Banzai, I think in like the early 2000s or the 2010s. And there are rumors even now that the World Crime Syndicate movie is being made, or it's in pre-production or something. And I don't know if that would have to be with an all new cast. And I don't even know what a Buckaroo Banzai character looks like in this day and age. If they just no sell the fact that it's 2022 and they just act like it's in the 80s. I don't know how you do it.
Well, for sure, you don't have a white actor playing a character who has been explained as half Japanese and half
right. And the thing you do to sell Peter Weller as a half Japanese person is, at one point he wears a headband like a Karate Kid, although this is before Karate Kid, I think, or right around the same time. And he wears those ninja shoes where the big toe is separated off from the rest of the toes.
Yeah.
He wears like those slippers at one point, and they dye his hair jet black. Yeah. And that's it. I guess
I'm glad they didn't put, like eye makeup or something on him. That would have been worse.
It could have been a lot worse, yeah. But also, like, this is, it's not, I'm not excusing it, but people didn't care as much.
Yeah.
Back then, maybe they did. They didn't voice it. I know there are all kinds of paths you can go down with that kind of stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, like I was saying, I think his Asian heritage, his Japanese heritage, is more emphasized in the outside movie materials. But yeah, you'd have to have a legit Asian actor playing, or at least American, some Caucasian Asian.
Yeah. Not a 100% white person.
Yeah.
And I looked him up to be like, well, does he have? Let's
just make sure Peter Weller.
And no, Wikipedia is like, his heritage is Scotch and German and French.
Right. I was going to say like German and something. Yeah. No, there's no. Yeah. But yeah, I think that it has this movie, and this is one of the things I love, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I love movies that feel like they're part of a larger world. And the way that this movie just starts in its stride already, they don't, you're kind of incidentally introduced to all the characters as you go. There's no, like, you don't know how he met Perfect Tommy or Rawhide. You see him meeting New Jersey, but that's, but he's got all these other guys that are a part of his crew. You have no idea how he's met any of these guys. It's just in stride, and it's just going. And you see when John Warfin escapes from the mental institution that he's been kept in, he passes a guy who's playing a Buckaroo Banzai video game, and he like electroshocks it, and it blows out. And there are comic books. In fact, the Black Lectroids have a comic book with them of Buckaroo Banzai. And I guess that's somehow how they know that he's like the guy. I mean, they know that he broke the barrier into the 8th dimension, but they also kind of like know his exploits from the comics and stuff. And so do everybody else. And like, he has a compound, and there are people just hanging out outside of it, waiting for a shot of whoever's going to come in. So he's got a paparazzi and like fan base. Yeah. So it's just
a lot going on.
It does a great job of just making you feel like it's in a lived-in world. Dead air. Sorry, I was taking a drink. She's supposed to cover for me when I do that, but she didn't.
I don't have anything else to say.
I'm parched. Well, you loved this movie. First of all, tell me, just give it to me. I don't expect you to like it, of course.
Well, again, you know how I love movies that don't explain things and just jump in. And that plus a bazillion characters.
A lot of characters.
I couldn't remember who was who, and not that it really matters, but I just don't like that feeling of always being half a step behind, and I don't know, just not my thing. I will say there were a lot of like little like one-off funny lines in there. Like I did laugh at all the big bouteille stuff. And there's a point where, so this whole company that they're at is all founded by the aliens who apparently don't speak English very well, because there's a sign one time on a door that says like, nobody comes in here, secret, and everything is misspelled.
Spelled wrong.
And it's never like, they just no sell it. It's just there. And I just cracked up.
And this is like some kind of company that has won a contract from the government to make like some kind of fighter bomber thing. So like, I mean, there's a lot going on. It's tough to explain. Like it's first time through. First time through, I was probably like 10, 9, 10 years old. But yeah, first time through, you don't get anything. You don't understand it. It's not a comedy. There are a couple of laughs in it, chuckles, not like they just, they don't go any farther than that. No.
Well, and I will say for a movie that has such a useless female character, there's not a lot of like, it's not Porky's, right? It's not a sex comedy, which, I give them credit for. It would have been really easy to go that direction.
Oh, yeah. It's not a comedy. It's not an action movie. Mm-hmm. There's an action scene towards the end, but it takes a long time to get there. And then it's not a lot. It's just a lot. It's a whole lot of somebody looking up, shooting, and then someone taking a high fall. Mm-hmm. Just a lot of that. It's just everybody, for all of these aliens, for some reason, have the high ground, and they think that that's good. But
it's sort of interesting, by the way, that the aliens can be killed by gunshots just like humans. Yeah. Like I always enjoy in movies when they go to the trouble of making aliens with much different physiology than humans. Like I'm always like, funny that the aliens have 2 legs and 2 arms and 1 head and eyes and a mouth, like in what was it, Signs, the aliens could be killed by water.
Yeah.
Like I appreciate that. This does not have that.
Yeah. And you mentioned Alien Nation earlier. In Alien Nation, the males get pregnant. Yeah. That's a plot point in the show. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, it's so hard to describe this movie. It's like, it's an ensemble, like adventure sort of thing. It's not like, it doesn't rise to like a Goonies as far as like an adventure movie. They are doing things like, it's not really a detective movie. It's not really like, I don't even know, like action adventure is how I would describe it, but it's not really either of those things.
It's a little bit. I can't even remember. What's the movie, the other movie that we watched with the aliens with Jeffrey Jones?
Oh, Howard the Duck.
That's
It's got a lot in common with, but Howard the Duck was explicitly funny in a lot of places.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of zany characters, and like this is a format of movie that has been perfected since. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we've seen a lot of other movies that have done this. I mean, Goonies for one. It's got a bunch of weird random characters who are all have their 1 or 2 defining character features, like you say, Perfect Tommy with his blonde hair, Rawhide is his, gruff Texan or whatever, New Jersey with his cowboy outfit, Reno is like the Godfather, like Scarface, like he's got like a sort of a Puerto Rican, Cuban
guy with 2 belts.
With 2 belts. Okay. The guy that gets shot and has the rest of his movies arm and sling. Yeah. So it's beyond description. I don't know. Like if you like sci-fi, it's fun, and you can see a lot of early stuff, like references, like I said, that will be taken and rolled with by other movies later. It's also a novel way of dealing with like space travel, like I assume that the implication here is that the 8th dimension is beyond time and space. It exists everywhere. So you can put the aliens in the 8th dimension on planet 10, and they can come out of the 8th dimension on planet Earth. I'm assuming that's the implication of so the Lectroids have to fly to Earth in a spaceship. The black Lectroids have to fly to Earth in a spaceship.
Yeah.
And it's just an interesting concept, a way of approaching it. And it's got a bunch of memorable lines and characters. And, there's the point after, so Buckaroo Banzai gets shocked by a fake call from the president through a payphone. It's the Lectroids calling, and they basically give him the ability to, so the red Lectroids, apparently they either do something, there's a pheromone, there's something that that allows them to trick you into seeing them as human.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lectroids coming to the planet, they give Buckaroo the ability to see through that. And he bursts into the conference room and he's like, "Don't you see them?" And then he points at the camera, like 3/4, like point, he's like, "Aliens from from planet 10 in the 8th dimension," and it's like, it's just a great, the way he delivers the line is just great. It's over the top. It's cheesy.
Okay.
Like so many things in this movie. It's just over the top and cheesy. I mean, it's hard to describe. I mean, I couldn't categorize it, and I don't know if anyone should ever watch it, but also I feel like everyone should watch it.
Well, I see why you at age 10 would like this.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And freaking, yeah. I don't think enough gets said about the performance. Why did his name just leave my head?
John Lithgow.
Yes, John Lithgow performance. I don't know. That's so weird.
He fully committed.
Committed.
Yeah.
He's all in on it, and he's just over the top. And now you can kind of see why I would confuse Worfen with Jeffrey Jones in.
Yes.
They're kind of playing a very similar character possessed by an alien sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Although the whole John Worfen thing is a little bit weird because he never appears as a Lectroid.
Yeah, I was a little confused by that.
I was never confused by that as a kid, but when I saw it, but yeah, very confused by that now. Of like, well, if everybody, because at a certain point they synthesize this gas they can breathe in so that they can see through the Lectroid disguise, and Buckaroo can see it the whole time. And yeah, John Lithgow never appears as, which I don't know, is that saying like. So he was, I guess he's still Emil or whatever. Like he's technically human, but he's inside his body.
Versus the other ones are alien bodies
their bodies escaped. I guess that's the excuse. Like again, in a movie where they didn't explain much, they didn't explain that. So unfortunately. I don't know if there's a whole lot more to say about this movie. Do you have any more hot takes?
I don't know what else to say, really.
The last thing to say is to just play the end credits music.
I was doing some toe tapping
and just
that.
march around your living room.
Yeah.
Yeah, this song, it's an absolute banger. Like,
well, and as with most scenes where it's like one person walking, and then a whole group walking. You see one, and then you see them all together, and I was like, holy shit, there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's not even the whole cast, because that doesn't have the aliens.
It's got none of the Johns in it, right?
Yeah,
except for John Parker, who's the one good alien that helps them.
There were so many. That was
it's crazy. Yeah, they all come up and they're all dressed in their best. Did you notice that? I don't know if this happened to anybody else, but Perfect Tommy changes clothes at one point. He changes into the suit that he's wearing in the jail, because when he comes up, he's just looking 100% like Billy Idol. He's got the white coat and the no shirt, and prancing up with his like studded belt on. And then at one point, he's in a suit.
Oh, in the end credits he changes?
Yeah, he changes
Oh,
clothes
I didn't notice that. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else changes, but yeah, he definitely changes because he's got like a white members only kind of thing. It's not a suit jacket. It's like a white leather jacket kind of thing. Yeah, and there's a couple times that they do little footsteps, like little feet apart, back together kind of things, and they all turn in unison. They're walking like
it's just marching. Like, what are they doing it for? Who knows? But
I mean, just because it's fucking cool.
It's a little. I was doing some toe tapping, which that's probably not cool anymore to do toe tapping. But
oh no, it's perfectly cool.
I was bopping. So that's Buckaroo Banzai.
Yeah. I think it is. Yeah. I mean, like, I can't really, like, I didn't expect you to like this movie. I expected you to just not understand any of it and be weirded out. I hope you could at least appreciate it as a time capsule.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
And it is just weird and fun. Well, once you understand what's going on, we didn't even mention that, talk about Back to the Future connections. Christopher Lloyd is in it.
Yeah.
What's the other character actor that's in this? The one with he's bald, he's got the frizzy hair.
Oh, I don't know if he was, I don't know his name. I don't know if he was in Back to the Future.
No. He's in a ton of stuff though.
He was in Ghost. He's the ghost who teaches Patrick Swayze how to do the thing. And I'm sure he's been actually
tons of stuff.
One thing that I enjoyed about that character, so he and Christopher Lloyd and Dan Hedaya are like the henchmen of the Electroids.
Yeah.
And there's a fair bit of, you see them with their human faces and then without. And with his alien face on. And that one, I could tell
he's 100%
because the alien has no chin.
He's 100% like he recognizable.
And part of it is the height, but I was like, okay, it's you would think that you would confuse those guys once they have the alien heads on. You wouldn't know which was which, but you definitely know which one that one is.
Vincent Schiavelli.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know him like 100%. And there are a bunch of other character actors in this that are in a ton of other stuff. Like Jonathan Banks is in this, who is what's his name from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and all that.
I don't know.
Mike from Breaking Bad, I guess.
Okay. Still don't know.
Yeah. So he's the prison guard at the beginning.
Okay.
They're the institution guard at the beginning. Yeah. Like now he's like super old and bald. And
okay. Well, and the one that you mentioned to me, Ambassador Smirnoff.
Yakov Smirnoff, yeah. Yeah, Yakov Smirnoff is in it.
In Soviet Russia.
Which
I don't know what. I don't have a joke for that.
Yeah. In Soviet Russia, Buckaroo Banzai's you. I don't know. I'm not prepared. I want to see, let me check the credits real quick if he is playing Ambassador Yakov Smirnoff. Just says National Security Advisor.
Okay.
But yeah, in a straight role, he's 100%. He's not hamming it up. He
doesn't even have a strong accent either.
Yeah, he's not playing up his accent. He's got about 3 lines.
Yeah, I would not have noticed that at all. But.
Yeah. It's just, there's just like when you really start looking through and start seeing people, like, you start seeing like the guy who played the president is also the guy who played the bad guy in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
Like just like out of nowhere, like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like and he's got hair and he's got makeup and all this stuff. But yeah, like this movie is a gold mine of just 80s, early to mid 80s character actors and just people who you will recognize even if you can't like the one guy. You can't place this guy, but I know I've seen him.
Thank God for IMDb. What would we do?
I know
without that. Yeah.
So watch this movie at your own risk. This movie has a great poster, but the DVD cover for this that they remade is horrible. I don't know. I don't know how it was allowed to happen. I will tweet it out. I was trying to find a picture for you just so I could get like your guttural reaction of how bad it is. But I don't think I'm gonna find one in time. Unfortunately. Oh, there it is.
What the hell?
Yeah, it's just like a horrible 90s, early 2000s cover. It's just a bunch of photos where they've been like stills from the movie where the characters have been cut out.
Yeah.
And it's like Buckaroo playing a guitar and New Jersey is off to the side in his cowboy outfit.
And Penny in her garbage bag
in her garbage bag skirt. And then they have a weird picture of like John Warfin just like coming in over the edge of the like, yeah. Like
it looks like a direct to video.
Yes, absolutely. Like, and the original one is like it is an 80s style, the paintings. I forget the guy who did all those paintings, but it's a painting of Buckaroo. He's got his hands in his pocket and his collar's popped on his suit jacket. And it's got a bunch of the faces of the different people in the movie at the bottom in little squares. And then it's got the ship busting out of the side. Like, we didn't even talk about most of the plot points of this movie because it's pointless, but you know, at some point they make a ship and it busts through the wall and then it gets shot down and Buckaroo wins. But yeah, it's great box art and they just replaced it with this horrible 90s garbage.
Well, we will find the good one and
2000s looking garbage
and post that. So.
Yes. Well, I'll post both.
Well, so folks, we would love to know what you think about this. Tell us your reactions, the good, the bad, the ugly. Who's your favorite random character actor who shows up in this? Did you see this when you were 10 and love it? Or did you see it as an adult and go, oh my goodness, what in the world? I could be either. So let us know what you think. You can tweet at us. You can send us an email. You can contact us on Facebook. Our handle is the same for all of those. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can tweet at us on Twitter. I believe I think
that's where you tweet.
That's the only place you can tweet is on Twitter. Yeah. You can send us an email at gmail.com or you can find us on Facebook. We always tweet out links to the episodes and we have them up on Facebook too. But you can also find us on any of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts. While you're there, we would love it if you would rate, review, and subscribe. Helps other people find the podcast, which is always great. And we have new episodes every other Wednesday. If you subscribe, you will always get the latest episode right in your queue. But 2 weeks from today, there'll be a new episode. In 2 weeks, I'm hosting, and I'm going to show Dave what may be the polar opposite of this, Brigadoon.
I know the name of that movie, but I have no idea what that's about.
Well,
I'm ready.
You're gonna know.
I'm ready.
There are no aliens. There is time travel, though, now that I think of it.
Oh, Lord. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So tune in 2 weeks and we'll talk about Brigadoon. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.